What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another math video with your boy, your tall friend, TallTal. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions through word problems. So if you're not real comfortable with adding and subtracting fractions, go back and watch some earlier videos of mine. But today we're going to really focus on how to attack word problems when fractions are involved. And it's really the same way you attack all word problems, but we're just going to do it from a fraction lens. All right. Where do you put a dog if it's misbehaving? The garage. Because he was growling. Garage. Okay, today we're going to talk about single step and multi-step word problems. Really, we're going to focus mostly on just single step as we think about just how to attack word problems. And we're going to focus on doing this through addition and subtraction and using fractions. Okay, so this is not going to be a lot of work on how do I add and subtract fractions. This is about how do I attack word problems so that I can use what I already know about adding and subtracting fractions. Okay. So we're going to be a detective for this whole thing. My idea with like attacking word problems is treating them like a crime scene. Okay, so really like right now, if you can imagine, put on your detective hat, get out your, what's that thing called? The magnifying glass, so you can check out some clues and such. So this is all about breaking down word problems like we would a detective. So first of all, we're going to do, the first step that we do as a detective is we're going to look at a very complex crime scene. So imagine coming into a crime scene and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to solve this case. There's all kinds of stuff. So let's just make it simpler first. Let's simplify the crime scene. And what I mean by that is, let's look at this complex crime scene. Okay. If a salesman had 22 cars and then sold 9, how many does he still have? Now, that may not seem very complex, but for the purpose of what I'm trying to teach you, when you get to really complex word problems, how do I simplify that? Well, it's mostly about just getting rid of the numbers and just simplifying it down to the very most basic of terms. Well, let's look and see what I mean. A salesman had some cars. He gave some away. How many cars does he have now? You see what I mean? Like, it's not about, am I adding, subtracting? It's just literally about what's going on in this problem. So read the complex crime scene and then turn it into a simpler one. So that's step one. Make it simpler, just so you can get to the understanding, because the math part comes later. What we're trying to do is figure out what math are we going to use. Okay, so here's our simpler crime scene. This lets the detective identify the main clues, which are he gave some away. So there's a main clue. He gave some away. And what crime to solve, like how many cars does he have left? Okay, so that's what our goal is like really with the simpler thing is let's just kind of look at it and say, all right, let's identify some of the main clues. So what we know is he gave some away. All right, he gave some away. And then if we know that, how many cars does he have left? The second step of being a detective is identify any small clues that will help you lead down a path for solving the case. So this means we're going to circle any numbers in the problem, and we're going to underline the keywords that may tell us if we should multiply, add, divide, or subtract. Because it's really coming down to like, where am I going with this? I'm trying to build a roadmap, but then also, how am I going to get there? Am I going to be multiplying, adding, or am I going to be doing some of the other one? Am I going to add and subtract? So if a salesman had 22 cars and then sold 9, how many does he still have? So let's go look at this real quick. So some buzzwords or keywords that we want to look for that help us solve cases. So when we're thinking about addition, these are some words that should tell you. These are clues, if you will, that tell you I should be adding. Think about adding. Does adding make sense? If you see the word sum in there, which you know from previous videos is the answer to an addition problem. If it says something like all together or in all, I had 3 dogs. Someone gave me 2. How many do I have in all? I'm going to add those together. The total number, total, more than. If I have 4 dogs, more than someone else. In other words, if it says the word add or addition, increased, plus, in addition, if we take something, we combine it. These are all words raised by or both. All of those could lead us to start thinking about, okay, subtraction may be, addition may be what we're looking at. So they're key words. They don't tell us exactly what to do, but they're going to give us some key words, some clues. And when we're dealing with subtraction, difference is the word that we know is the answer to an addition problem, if we say something like fewer than, or we take away, or how many more do I have? How much longer, or how much shorter, or how much smaller is this one thing than the other? Or I gave some away. That sounds familiar. Or I sold some. Sold means that we got rid of them. Or how many do I have left? Or I have how many less than Bob? Or that's decreased or less than. All of these are buzzwords. So in your notes, you should be like underlying those, or you should be thinking about how do I figure out when I'm doing a word problem, how I could use this understanding of buzzwords to help me solve the case. Okay, so the third step, great detectives take all the clues and design a roadmap for success. So this is all about drawing a plan. The roadmap is a plan. So here's our complex crime scene. And remember, we circled 22 and we circled 9 because those are our numbers. And then we're supposed to underline anything that was a buzzword. So from the number 2, detective's second step was to underline. So do you see anything in here that might be a buzzword that is a keyword? A salesman had 22 cars and then sold. Oh, he sold them. How many does he still have? How many does he still have? That looks like it's going to be important because we're going to know, well, let's talk about. So if we take this and we say, all right, let's think about what our roadmap might be. So when I say draw pictures and think about what the detective's clues are, just talk about what you have. So remember when we went simplify, we said he had some cars, right? So the salesman had some cars. So here he had some cars. So how many did he have? Well, he had 22 cars. And then he gave some away. So some of these, I may draw an arrow and say gave away. What did he give away? Well, he gave away 9, okay? And how many does he still have? Well, that's what I'm trying to solve. So that's like our mystery. How many does he still have? So I've got myself a roadmap. I got 22 he had. He gave away 9. And I'm trying to figure out how many does he have left? Well, when I thought about my buzzwords, I went back and said, you know what, that gave away or sold, all of those led me to believe in subtraction, right? It made me think subtraction. So I'm thinking that is going to be subtraction. So now we've got our roadmap. We've talked about our clues. We've figured out what our buzzwords are. We've drawn our map, which tells us he had 22 and he gave away, which we know means subtraction 9. And that leads us to our fourth step. Solve the case, which means do the work. So we had 22 and we subtract 9. Okay, and what is 22 minus 9? Well, I can't take 9 away from 2, so I borrow. And he has 13. So how many, take all the clues and solve the case? Well, he has 13 cars left. That would be the answer to our problem. Okay, so you use each one of those 4 steps, all right? And that's what's important here is you're understanding you use each one of those steps to get there. And that's what I did with this problem. Okay, so let's try some on some practice cases, all right? So Sally walked 3/4 of a mile before lunch and 1/2 of a mile after lunch. How far did she walk in all? Okay, so let's take that and we'll make a simpler version of that question first. So step number 1 says make a simpler version. So Sarah walked, so we could just say she walked some before lunch and she walked some after lunch. How far did she go in all? So that's what your simple version would be, because right now it has a lot of details. So Sarah walked some before lunch, she walked some after lunch. How far did she go? There's your simple version. Okay, the second one is identify clues, right? Identify clues, so we should be circling our numbers. Okay, so there's our numbers, circling our numbers. We have 2 fractions. And now we're looking, the other clue is like search for words that say, that are like clues, that are buzzwords or things that can help us. So there's a couple of them in here that I noticed. Sally walked 3/4 of a mile before lunch. And could be important because it's not saying or something along those lines. So and kind of tells us 2 things are going to happen. And 1/2 a mile after lunch. How far, okay, how far did she go in all? So when I look at those, I say to myself, okay, she walked some before lunch, she walked some after lunch. How far, so we're looking for a total distance, did she walk in all? And in all screams addition. So now we draw a roadmap. We have before lunch plus after lunch equals our answer, okay? So then I could say, well, what did she walk before lunch? She walked 3/4. What did she walk after lunch? She walked 1/2. How much did she walk in all? That is our unknown. So now we know how to solve the case. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we said we're going to add those two fractions together. So 3/4 plus 1/2. Okay, cats and dogs. Can I add fourths to halves? Can I add cats to dogs? No. Do I see a relationship between these cats and dogs? And some of you may be saying, what are you talking about? You got to go check out the video on adding fractions if you don't know about cats and dogs, because it's huge. Do I see a relationship between these three cats and these three cats and this one dog? Yeah, I do. I noticed that one of them, the smaller number, will go into the bigger number. So let's turn them into the same thing. Let's keep this as fourths, because we know this one will work, okay? Because we know that we're going to change this fourth into an equivalent fraction that gets us fourth on the bottom. So what do I do to the 2? I multiplied by 2. What do I do to the top? The same thing I did to the bottom. So I got 2/4. Now I have 3/4 plus 2/4. So we keep the denominator the same. We add up our numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5. And most problems are going to want you to put it in simplest form. So we're going to turn this guy into a mixed number, okay? How many times does 4 go into 5? It goes into it 1, so we can get rid of 1 whole. And what do we have left over if we got rid of 4/4? We have 1 of those left. So we have 1 1/4. That's how far Sally walked in all, okay? Let's try another one, okay? Now we have Stanley ordered 2 pizzas cut into eighths. If he ate 5/8 of a pizza, how much was left? Okay, so let's go through our clues. And let's think about what our steps are. The first one is just make it simpler. Stanley ordered some pizza. He ate some pizza. How much was left? He ordered some pizza. He ate some pizza. How much was left? And when you do that, it already starts to tell you some clues. If we're talking about how much was left, we're probably going to be getting rid of stuff. So let's see what that does. Whoops, I'm sorry. So then we identify the clues, all right? So where are our numbers? Well, he had 2 pizzas. And I'm going to switch up to a different color. He had 2 pizzas, all right? And here's 5/8 of a pizza. Do we see any buzzwords, all right? Stanley ordered 2 pizzas cut into eighths. He ate 5/8 of a pizza. How much? So we're looking at how much was left. How much was left? Okay, so can I use my simple version of it and my clues to get set up an answer situation here? Okay, so we're going to say he had some pizza. He ate some, so we know that how much was left is screaming subtraction. So he ate some, and he has some left over. So he had 2 pizzas. He ate 5/8 of it, and we want to know how much is left. And that gets us to our problem. All right, so let's go solve this bad boy. All right, what were we doing? We were subtracting. So we were taking 2 pizzas. And we were subtracting 5/8 of a pizza, because that's how much he ate. All right, I'm going to make this smaller real quick because you're going to have a tough time seeing what I convert this into. So we can't take 5/8 away from nothing. So we have to borrow from our big whole number over here. So that becomes 1. And if we got rid of a whole, and we're talking about pizza that are cut into eighths, what we really got rid of is 8/8. Okay, 8/8. So now we have 8/8 minus 5/8. Well, that gives us 3/8. Okay, and now we have 1 minus 0, which gives us 1. So there is still 1 3/8 of a pizza left over. Okay, guys, be detectives. Make it simpler. Look for clues. Draw a roadmap. Solve that bad boy. Okay, what do you do if there's a lion in your bed? Yeah, get out of the bed and go to a hotel. Duh.